Good morning, my fellow farmers. I'm your host, Kakumbi Kapeperesha Benjamin. I'm the specialist in veterinary services and livestock production. Today, we'll talk about how you can become a rich farmer, how you can enjoy money in farming sector. So today our first topic will look on poultry production. So poultry production is very wide, but for today's session we'll just get the subtitle of broiler production. So in this broiler production is also in stages. So today we'll talk about adequate planning for better broiler production. Before you venture into broiler production, what planning you need to consider when you want to start? So what you need to consider when you want to start broiler production is you need to have poultry house. Already you need to consider that you have already acquired the land where you need to put poultry house. Equipments, human resource, finances, stock budgeting, and lastly you need also to have a year plan. So poultry house, you need to ask your question, what does a poultry house look like? You need to sit down and understand the poultry house. Visit the veterinary offices or livestock offices so that you acquire more knowledge on how a poultry house should look like. Secondly, you need to ask yourself, how do you know the number of chickens a poultry house should hold? You need to understand how many number of chicks you want to start with according to the size of the poultry house which you have built. So how can you know? You need to understand that. How can you know the number of beds are supposed to be in that poultry house? So for instance, you have built a poultry house which is 5 meters length and 3 meters width. The simple way of knowing that, get me right, we need to understand how we can find the number of beds you need to put in the poultry house. So I'm going to teach you a simple way on identifying how many beds you need to put in a particular poultry house. So you will have built 5 by 3 meters poultry house. How many beds are you supposed to put in that? So broiler stocking density, you need to consider broiler stocking density is 10 beds per square meter. So the easiest way you are going to calculate is length times width times stocking density, which is 10 beds per square meter. So in 5 by 3 meters, 5 times 3 is 15. 15 times 10 is going to give you 150 beds which you need to put in that poultry house of 5 by 3 meters. I hope you are getting what I'm explaining. So basic rules when you building a poultry house. So there are 6 basic rules. Number 1, know the number of beds you want to keep. Always put it into your mind. You are investing for future. You are not investing for today. You are investing for future. How many, you need to understand in 5 years, how many beds am I supposed to keep? So it's quite important you build in advance to avoid the unnecessary expenses. So know the number of chickens you want to keep. Number 2, location of the poultry house should be far from human dwelling. Why are you supposed to put a distance from human dwelling to the poultry house? The major reason is for to spread diseases to chickens. Get the proper poultry house building plans. Don't just build a structure with improper shape. You need to consider the building plans. Visit planners from council who can give you a good plan. Restricted entry. When you are constructing a poultry house, a poultry unit, you need also to construct entry to construct restricted entries in order to reduce the spread of diseases. Number 5, free from rodents and wild birds. Consider to put. You need to make sure that you clean the surrounding where you want to put your poultry house. Number 6 is secure and clean storage facility. Make sure that you secure and always clean the storage facility. These are the 6 basic rules which you need to consider when you are preparing or building a poultry unit. Equipments. The equipments, you need to have drinkers. So drinkers, they are in sizes. So a 4-liter chick font is supposed to be covered by 60 chicks. A 10-liter drinker is supposed to be covered by 60 beds according to the size of the circumference. It's very important. So feeders, we have got pans and also have got feeders in kilograms. So a pan should be covered by 60 beds, chicks, and a 10 kg feeder bucket should be covered by 60 full-grown beds. These are the simple way of understanding the drinkers and feeders. So you also need to have a weighing scale, because each week you need to weigh a chick to understand whether the chick is gaining or is not gaining. That's when you are going to understand that the amount of feed you are supposed to give is equivalent to so much weight. So infrared lamp is quite important in the first 2 weeks, especially in plateau where it's very cold. You need to consider the infrared lamp. If you don't have an infrared lamp, you can improvise by building pressure. It's quite important because you need to understand the amount of heat the chicks requires. So always remember to buy a poultry thermometer, because it's going to give you the correct temperature the chicks requires. Human resource. Number 1, you need to source a skillful woman or man to work in your poultry. You just don't pick anyone anyhow. If you pick someone who doesn't know anything about the poultry production, it's better you acquire consultants from the veterinary office or livestock office. Are problems being reported in time? You need to consider that under human resource. Make sure that your worker reports all the problems in time. How many times is feeding done in a day? Make sure it's a human resource responsibility. Do drinkers have water all the time? How often do you walk into the chicken land to help? As the poultry farmer, you are the general manager. You need to be in the poultry house each and every time. You need to understand 10 times than your worker is doing. So financing and budgeting. So financing and budgeting is very important before you venture into broiler production. First, you need to understand how much is per chick. You come to feed. Feed, there are 3 types of feed. There is starter, grower, and finisher. You come to vaccinations. So vaccinations, there are 2 major vaccines which you need to consider. There is Gumboro, Newcastle. And then coming to vitamins and boosters. So vitamins and boosters, we have got broiler booster, and you also have stress pack. So under stress pack, the most common stress pack, there are 3. There is Tetrox, yellow stress pack. There's Tetrox, yellow stress pack, and Energizer. This you need to consider and make the budget for these vaccines. For instance, if you want to start keeping 50 beds, so for instance, if you are buying a chicken or a chick at 7 kwacha 15 way, you need to multiply by 50. It's going to give you a correct amount of money to purchase 50 beds. So for 50 beds, how many starter do you need? For 50 beds, you only need 150 kg of starter. Grower, you need 2 bags of grower for 50 beds. Finisher, you also need 2 bags of finisher for 50 beds. That's the simple